Whether you play it or not, No Man's Sky remains a game that garners a lot of interest. The newest update, called Beyond, features some high-profile content that many players have been asking for a very long time now. Most notable of these are VR support and a wider-reaching online MMO Lite functionality, which they're calling No Man's Sky Online. There's also a third component to the update, which Hello Games have not yet revealed. Now, one of the most asked questions about Beyond is, when would it be released? Well, Hello Games have stated that it's going to be a summer release. More recently, however, the Australian Classification Board posted an entry for ratings on No Man's Sky Beyond. This happened on the 8th of July, so whilst there still isn't a release date, it seems likely that it's going to be very soon now. Although, to be fair, classification isn't really an indicator of release date. Meanwhile, PCGamesN conducted an interview with No Man's Sky game director Sean Murray recently. Whilst he didn't go into any new details on the Beyond update, the interview was nonetheless very revealing on Hello Games' current take on the game. The developers are clearly still very passionate about the game, and a couple of highlights really do stand out from the interview. One point in particular is that Hello Games initially believed that the most recent update for the game, Next, was going to be the last update for the game. They hadn't really planned on going any further than that. However, it seemed that a number of things happened. Firstly, Hello Games genuinely enjoy working on the game. Secondly, they always seem to find areas of the game that they want to improve. And thirdly, perhaps most importantly, I don't know, the game still has a very active community. Another standout point from the interview was the fact that it appears Hello Games never really intended to originally put base building into the game. And base building is something that Sean Murray admits came after the fact. However, it turned out to be the second most played aspect of the game, second only to exploration. Now, most of you will know that I'm a huge exploration fan in pretty much any open world game, but especially in open world space games. It's interesting then to see how base building ultimately ended up improving exploration. Originally, players simply wanted to find new planets that other people had never visited, whereas now, for some players at least, the opposite is true. Finding planets upon which players have already built structures can both be exciting as well as intriguing. Players are nothing if not inventive after all. For me at least, this is something that is interesting to think about. I mean, we still don't know the details on how the improved online aspect of No Man's Sky will actually work, but Hello Games have been keen to emphasise that the update will not turn the game into a fully fledged MMO. Reading between the lines there, it appears that MMO Lite may be a possibility. That is to say, it's clearly looking like No Man's Sky will become more interconnected in terms of bringing players together, but don't expect the full-on MMO content updates, raid systems and all the rest of it. In terms of what this means for players interacting with each other when exploring and base building though, I suspect it's really going to open the game up a whole lot, and that is something that is really interesting to me. The VR update is also something that is very, very curious, especially when you consider that this update will not only be bringing VR to PC, but also to the PS4. Now, game performance, in particular frame rates, are very important when it comes to VR. Frame rates of 90 frames per second are often the target, although 80 frames per second are also good. Either way, generally speaking, the higher the frame rates, the better. And this becomes very apparent with the new Valve Index headset, which has a refresh rate of 120 Hz. Although to be fair, the new Oculus Rift S fares very well with a refresh rate of just 80 Hz. The PSVR, meanwhile, is a little more tricky. The headset is capable of going up to a refresh rate of 120 Hz, essentially allowing games to run at 120 frames per second. Anyone who's played No Man's Sky though on the PlayStation 4 will know that frame rates like that are never going to happen. Fortunately then, there are two other modes that developers can use for the PSVR. 90 Hz at 90 frames per second, or alternatively 60 frames per second, which are reprojected twice per second, giving a refresh rate of 120 Hz. Now, the interesting thing here is that Sony, in the past at least, have stated that if games fall below 60 frames per second, they would be unlikely to certify them for PSVR. So this really does put No Man's Sky on the PlayStation 4 in a very strange position. Anyone who's played the game, even with the recent updates, and even on the PlayStation 4 Pro, will have noticed that, from time to time at least, the frame rates drop well below 60 frames per second. Now add into the equation that VR is generally more demanding than regular displays, then it raises all manner of questions, especially for the vanilla version of the PlayStation 4. It seems very likely then that some compromises will be made in order to get the No Man's Sky running on PSVR, so it's going to be very curious to see how that actually pans out. I'm looking forward to getting hands-on with it and trying it. Talking of performance, it's also worth mentioning that the PC update will be bringing Vulkan API support to the game, and this is likely to bring some huge performance gains to PCs, so there's that as well. In terms of how this is all going to pan out, we should be able to find out very soon. Beyond contains three separate parts: the online component, the VR component, and a third as yet unannounced component. If rumours are true, if rumours are to be believed, we should be seeing this very soon. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.